Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my latest video. For those who are new, I like to make these little videos about movies I enjoy and want to share. If you like what you see, consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing, as it really does help out the channel quite a bit. Okay, so I just want to kind of dive right in here. For a while now, ever since I started revisiting the Friday the 13th franchise last summer, as well as the Nightmare on Elm Street ones a little bit later in that summer, I've had this idea about going back and checking out some of these remakes. Now, I've kind of wanted to do like a remake review here and there, and some people look at remakes like they're blasphemous, something just never to be done under any circumstances. But, we did get The Thing out of that. That was a remake, and that came out pretty good. But the way that I look at remakes, I look at it like a production of a play. We're going to have a new producer, a new director, a new cast, maybe even a complete rewrite of the script to bring something new. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails miserably, and sometimes it was just kind of okay for the most part, but other than that, kind of pointless. So rarely is a remake ever going to be better than the original. I never expect a remake to be better than the original. I just go in open-minded, hoping to have something to enjoy that I could put alongside the other versions, such as if there's sequels to the original. Just something I can put alongside with them to also enjoy. So for this entry, I decided to revisit the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, starring most prominently Jackie Earle Haley, taking on the role of Freddy Krueger, which of course was previously played by Robert Englund. And this was what got the most attention here, was that Robert Englund wasn't going to be in it. So I remember when this was first announced, and since I'd just seen Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach in The Watchmen, I was 100% on board with this. I thought he did great in that, and I was eager to see what he would do with the Freddy Krueger character, which, funny enough, I heard just recently when I was going through rewatching the Nightmare on Elm Street films that he actually auditioned for Freddy Krueger originally before Robert Englund got it. And I knew at the time that this film came out, he had spoken with Robert Englund about some of the differences that they could bring to this character to make it stand out, some other direction to go with it. So that really got me on board with wanting to see what they were going to do with this. So I remember back in the day seeing this in the theater. It actually opened up on my birthday, and feeling it was a decent remake. I think I watched it again a few months later, maybe. I think I picked it up on Blu-ray, but it's easily been over 10 years since I've seen it. And now that I revisited the entire original franchise, last summer, I was eager to dive into this remake to see what it was like. So how was it? Well, it was all right. Not great. Not, really good, but just all right, Specifically, Jackie Earle Haley, in my opinion, was the best part of it, as was his makeup, because they kind of went for a more realistic effect of what a burn victim would look like. So that made it look much different from how Englund was made up to look in that role. And he also had much less humor in this, he was more creepy. They leaned closer to what the first film had done, where there was almost no humor in it at all, except for some of the side characters. So after going through that entire series and seeing the comedy take the forefront, this was actually kind of refreshing to see it get back to the intent being scary and creepy and gory, and not so many puns, not having Freddy Krueger come across like a game show host quite as much. But now, I shouldn't have to do this since it's been 13 years and, spoiler alerts shouldn't even matter at this point, but a little spoiler alert. So, they had gone down this route leading us to believe for a while that maybe Freddy Krueger hadn't actually done anything to these kids. That maybe he was just falsely accused, or the kids didn't really understand what they were saying. And I remember when I first saw that, really not enjoying them going down that route, because I didn't like that idea. Luckily, of course, for those who've seen this remake, it gets revealed that, yeah, he actually did do all of these things. He is as evil as, we're led to believe. So they did walk that back, but it was an interesting direction that they tried to lead you down this road that maybe he's getting revenge for being wrongfully accused first. It's probably something that wasn't needed, but at least it was an interesting little swing that they took with that one. But yeah, so they just stuck with him being evil through and through, and I'm glad that they went down that road ultimately. But, as far as other things about the film, we had some good scary jumps here and there. We had some decent gore. They did a really great job of that fear that you would have about falling asleep, that it's something you can't escape because you need to sleep. But it was just all right. It didn't really do much for me. Just all right, because for one thing, it dragged, you know, in a lot of bases. It just felt a little bit too long. They could have maybe used a re-edit to tighten up a few scenes here and there. There's also the acting. It was just okay, you know, nothing stellar, especially, you know, compared to Jackie Earle Haley. Did a great job, but everybody else is just fine. And as far as everybody else goes, you know, the casting was a bit rough, you know, seeing these kids who are obviously like 28 years old or something and still in high school. And I know that they do that a lot with high school roles, that they cast older actors in them, but at least in a lot of those cases, they look closer to teenagers. And this one, there were actually some points where I felt like I didn't know what was the real age difference between one character and her mother, because it looked like maybe an 11-year difference there. Just something about them that didn't really come across like high school students as well as they did in you know, the original film or any of the sequels afterward even. But and finally, you know, I think that they just tried a little bit too hard to reproduce the original for certain scenes. So, you know, the original Elm Street films, you know, both the good ones and the ones that I didn't care for in the series, they're just way too iconic. And there's, you know, way too many of them to draw a comparison to. So when they went that route, it didn't really land as well. You know, I think it would have landed better if they took some bigger swings to really mix things up, mix up who some of the characters are, really change things up. But when they're literally reproducing some of the scenes from the original film, I just couldn't help but make the comparison to the original when I'm trying to watch it as something new with an open mind to not even think about the original. So that may have worked for people who never saw the original. They may have loved this film, but I think for a lot of people like me who were fans of the originals, it was just kind of okay. It felt almost like a fan movie in a way. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. You know, if I was doing like numerical ratings, I would probably give this one about a 6 out of 10, you know, just above that mid-range. Nothing to write home about. Definitely not a bad movie in my opinion, just kind of pointless in some ways. We just have way too much to choose from in this franchise. You know, I'd rather watch part 1 and part 3 especially than watch this one again. I'd rather revisit part 2 now after seeing Scream Queen, My Life on Elm Street, or My Nightmare on Elm Street, sorry. Or even watching New Nightmare with that, you know, new appreciation for how meta that was and everything, than going back to this remake again. But anyways, that's my quick little review for Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake from 2010 starring Jackie Earle Haley. In summary, Haley was great. It was creepy, it was scary, but it was kind of slow, a little bit disjointed, and the casting was off for what was ultimately just an alright entry. Worth checking out? Sure, but be prepared for it to just be okay. Of course, you know, results may vary, so check it out, I guess. Speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest entry of mine, and sticking around to the end, as all those things really do help out the algorithm quite a bit. I'm going to be looking into doing more of these remakes here and there. I have, I think, about like 5 or 10 of them on a list somewhere that I'll sporadically throw out there here and there. So be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notifications for when I put up that new content, and I will see you in the next one.